Right, good evening everybody, and welcome to the May Ordinary Meeting of Council. This evening we have General Manager Ken Ross, we have Jeff Gunn and Simon Rule, and answering questions on behalf of the Acting Planning Director will be the General Manager. I'd invite the General Manager to make announcements regarding the live streaming of this evening's meeting.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The meeting is being live streamed and or recorded for on-demand viewing via Council's website. Attendance at the meeting is to be taken as consent by a person of their image and or voice being webcast. All speakers should refrain from making any defamatory comments or releasing personal information about another individual without their consent. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result from defamatory comments made by persons attending meetings. All liability will rest with the individual who made the comments. The meeting must not be recorded by others without prior written consent of the Council in accordance with the Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Councillors and staff are obligated to declare conflicts of interest as required under the Local Government Act and Council's adopted Code of Conduct. Councillors are reminded of their oath of office, whereby they have declared and affirmed that they will undertake the duties of the office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of the Wentworth Shire and Wentworth Shire Council, and they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act or any other act to the best of their ability and judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. I'd invite those who are able to stand, please, for the prayer and acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we live and work and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Please bless us with the courage to work together as a united, supportive and resilient team bound by a shared sense of purpose and a commitment to excellence. May our teamwork reflect your boundless love, grace and wisdom. Help us to communicate openly, listen attentively and value each other's perspectives. Thank you. Okay, I've received a leave of absence request from Councillor Elstone. Are there any other leave of absence requests for upcoming meetings? Could I have a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Nichols. A seconder, Councillor Rodder, to accept the leave of absence from Councillor Elstone. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Are there any disclosures of interests? Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe I have a significant non-pecuniary and I'll explain why. The interest is in 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. There are 759 pages which I've read, 108 are objections from 14 objectors. 27 pages of support from two people, lots of people. 14 of the objectors have used 3 or 4 code corresponding complaints in their submissions. So don't just run out when something happens. It's there for a reason. I have a grandson who's 17 and 4 months. In 8 months, he has been told, or his mother has been told, he will be offered a place in a type of living that we're talking about.
Thank you, Councillor Nichols. Are there any further disclosures? Thank you very much. Move on to item 5, confirmation of the previous minutes. Could I have a mover? Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Weeding. Any discussion? Put the motion, those in favour? Thank you, that is carried. Councillor Crisp.
Mr Mayor, I move that we suspend ordinary business for the purpose of a public forum.
Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour? Thank you, that is carried. Okay, we've received advice that we have 3 speakers who wish to speak to items 9, 12 through to 9, 20. Speaking for the items is May from Supervest, who is joining us online. Good evening, May.
Good evening.
And speaking against, we have Mr. Jamie Simmons and Mr. Alan McWay. May, I might get you to to start if you'd like. Each speaker will have 3 minutes, and at the conclusion, councillors can ask a question of the speaker, but not the other way around. So, May, when you're ready, please address the chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councillors. So I am the legal representative for Supervest, being the owner of the 9 DAs that are before you today. The DAs are for specialist disability accommodation, so they're all being heard this afternoon. I do note that council has recommended all 9 DAs be approved. However, there are a range of objections that have been raised in the public notification period, which is why I'm here today to speak to that. So specifically, and unfortunately, I do say this with all due respect, but the objections do paint the image that there has been some sort of misunderstanding, a lack of information, I guess, and a bias or a stigma that is held around disability housing. So this much is clear from the objections themselves. So they're around security, issues about security, traffic congestion, property damage, noise, character of the community, and demand in the area, and so on. So the objections go straight to the point that, unfortunately, the wider community has some sort of misunderstanding about what is being built and their purpose. So just to shed light, the participants that these properties are being built for are high physical support participants. So they are individuals with significant disabilities that impairs their physicality to such a high degree. They cannot move without assistance, most of them. They can't get out of bed unassisted. They can't walk down the street unassisted. They definitely can't cause a ruckus in the community or damage anyone's property in the community. They're not out on the street. They're not doing anything unfavourable in the community that would actually hurt the reputation of Wahroonga and the wider community. Most of them can't even drive. So they are high physical support participants. There may be 1 or 2 carers on site and they will be driving. And the only reason I bring this up is because of the congestion issue that's been brought up. So there might be 1 or 2 max at the dwelling. But even still, I would say that's quite on par with other residents for able-bodied homes as well. They would also have a couple of cars on the residence too. But there is a garage, there are driveways, there is parking around. But what I do want to highlight is these participants require 24-hour care, so that they are living in a home, have the right to a home. They're not restricted to a hospital bed. We're trying to provide them with the best quality of life possible. And I'm sure everyone agrees that everybody deserves a home. You cannot sit here and say, yes, I agree, but this, but that, but we don't need it, but they don't need to be here. It is a breach of federal legislation. It's discrimination against disability. So there's NDIS legislation, discriminatory legislation, there's mandatory state legislation, and I note that council even has the Disability Inclusion Action Plan as well, which was mandated by the Disability Inclusion Act in New South Wales. These are mandatory pieces of legislation. So, councillors, respectfully, the DAs cannot be refused on this basis. It's mandatory. I do note that legislation permits, under Section 62 of the SEPP, that a refusal for a disability home or a group home must not be refused on any basis other than if an assessment of the community need has been made.
Thank you,
so
May.
this
I'll just let you wrap up that point. That 3 minutes goes quick, doesn't it? So if
It
you just want to
does.
finish that line of thinking, and thank you.
No problem at all. So I just want to address the assessment or the lack of assessment that has been made. I haven't seen any sort of documentation. What I do actually want to highlight is that my client has gone forward and obtained an assessment of the community need. So that's the need right now, and it also indicates the flaws in the NDIS data at the moment, why they're not realistic. And it's unfortunate that they're not, but they are not realistic. So the actual on-the-ground data is what has to be gone off in relation to highlighting the demand in Wahroonga.
Thank
The
you very
most
much,
important
May.
thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, councillors, does anyone have a question for May, for representing Supervest? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. May, thank you for that presentation. Just quickly, you mentioned that these houses require support staff, which we know from talking to other NDIS providers, and saying that one or two, max it dwelling with cars. What about, would there be an expectation during the day that there would be an excess number of cars with people like occupational therapists, doctors, nurses visiting? Would that number balloon during the day on these premises?
I mean, not to any sort of extent that it would cause any sort of traffic congestion. They might have a therapist coming into the dwelling, for sure, just to do some therapy in-house. There may also be times that they're actually taken outside of their dwellings and they go off to an off-site centre as well to have their care done. But that being said, 1, 2 or 3 cars in actual fact is quite similar to the sort of cars and congestion that you would expect on any other given street. So it doesn't increase it or maximise it to this extent that there would be a concern. It's still a reasonable amount of traffic and control in the area.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May, just another question to you. In the NDIA's self-led review of SDA housing, one of the recommendations was that houses not be concentrated in locations, that they be spread more evenly through suburbs and through regions. Do you think the concentration of 9 of these properties within about 2 or 3 acres of land, do you think that would meet the recommendation of that self-led inquiry?
I would say that it wouldn't. So I understand that the saturation can be an issue, and I would say if there were a larger amount, then I would hold a concern. But with the streets, so there's about 3 streets that we've got. So it's Midway, Broadstock and Wendy Court. So I know they all are in close vicinity, and there's a few houses proposed on every single street. It's not a saturation to the point where I would say it's an unreasonable saturation. I think it's more there to keep the participants familiar with each other, to keep them comfortable, still have them within their own community as well, because they in turn will form their own community where they can, talk with each other. If someone wants to go for a roll down the street with their carer, they're able to do so. They might want to visit a friend next door. It's quite a lovely relationship that they can build when there are a few homes that are close together. But I wouldn't say it's to the point of there is some sort of saturation that the NDIA would be pointing to. I think the volume that we have at the moment within those few streets is more of to create a familial community with the members.
Thank you, mate. Any further questions? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May, to you, just looking at the plans that are provided with the application, I know that there are 3 bedrooms set up and I'm just looking at one of the plans, 3 bedrooms set up for those who need the care, and 1 for, I'm guessing, overnight carers. In talking to other suppliers and facilitators of NDIS care in our region, in their experience with their SDA clients, every SDA client requires an overnight staff member. Generally, that's what we're seeing in regulations from Victoria. Now, New South Wales regulations might not be as stringent, but is it your understanding that 1 nurse, for example, could care for 3 SDA clients overnight?
Raymond, I might get you to also jump in on this too, just because you might be a little bit more familiar with the background. From my understanding, because they are high physical support participants, it's recommended that they do have an on-site carer just so that they can provide that 24/7 hour care if anything is needed. If they need to stay, obviously there is a room for them to stay. However, it's not mandatory that they actually do stay there overnight. It's more of a recommendation or a guideline that it do be there.
That's right.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I'm holding on with questions, Mr. Mayor, today.
Very inquisitive. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, May, for your contribution.
Thank you.
I will now invite Mr. Jamie Simmons to speak against items 912 through 920.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I suggest, if I may and Raymond, go through 3 months of investigation with your own sales reps and get some different facts that I've been getting for the last 3 months. They contradict everything you've just said, by the way. So thank you for letting me speak here tonight. As per our previous meetings, based on the outcome of the March meeting, I believe I stand for everyone opposing these 9 new DAs, and we hold on to legislation 62.1.A. The current SDA data needs analysis is still at 3 people, not houses, and these extra 9 homes are not needed in today's current environment. In the outcome of the March meeting, our councillors stated that they would seek advice, that there would be an external report on the viability of this matter regarding a community needs assessment on the high volume of applied SDA homes. I can assume that there's no report, because there's no report here tonight, that it hasn't actually been done. So we're still waiting for an outcome on that. So I would ask that these applications and all new applications should fall under the same ruling that we came to in the March meeting, and wait until a report is forthcoming. I think that just makes sense on your last outcome of the meetings, upholding all the other applications. So I object to all the DAs under this assumption. I don't see the need to justify any of the minutes that have been tabled and written for tonight's planning on this issue. They seem to be regurgitated as the same ones, and my replies would be the same as previous meetings, to which you all have the notes. So I thank you for your time tonight. I've got a lot more to say, but I could take up the 27 minutes, but I'll take the 3.
You've got a minute 23 left.
I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors, for Jamie? Okay, thank you very much. We have a second speaker, Mr. Allen. Okay, thanks, Alan. You also have 3 minutes.
I forgot to say it was 19.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I speak tonight on behalf of the concerned residents and landowners of Midway Estate to formally object to the proposal to establish a cluster of SDA group homes in this subdivision. I'm speaking on behalf of my son and sons, Matthew and Benjamin, who are residents in Wendy Court within the subdivision. I just want to be clear, and I'm reacting a little bit to what May said about the social stigma that's supposedly being directed at disabled people. That is not the case. I want to be clear about this. This is not about opposing support for people with disability. It's about scale, location, and most critically, the need for this accommodation. Council's DA assessment report, citing the cadet planner, claims there are 68 eligible SDA participants in the New South Wales Lower Murray SA3 region. This figure is plainly incorrect. According to the official NDIS data or demand data, there are currently only 3 participants in this entire SA3 area eligible for SDA housing. Now, I take May's point too that may be inaccurate, but we do need that assessment. The number 68 was reached, and this is really annoying, the number 68 was reached by artificially inflating the data, applying a minimum of 10 assumption 5 times, where the numbers reported were reported as less than 11. So less than 11, that's 10 for each, 5 times. And even that was incorrect before I came to that. This approach is not only speculative, it contradicts the principles of evidence-based planning. Moreover, the data set referred to represents all NDIS active participants, not the relevant subset of just eligible SDA participants seeking accommodation, which is much less. Relevant NDIS data I referred to above indicates 3 only eligible participants exist. These are already catered for many times over, with the 5 permanent group homes already approved by this council in this one small subdivision. It is deeply concerning that such a major development proposal has been advanced on the back of guesswork, not verified demand. This council gave the community commitment back in March that an independent, robust needs assessment would be conducted before any such developments proceeded. I've yet to learn that this has happened. We ask you now to honour that commitment before making any decision with such long-term implications. In the meantime, the very presence of this proposal is already having a chilling effect. 2 landowners in the Midway estate have already sold their blocks because of the SDA cluster, and 2 more have said they will follow suit if it goes ahead. Interest from home buyers has ceased. Residents are anxious, property values and confidence are under threat. A cluster of group homes in a tightly knit emerging residential estate with no clear or confirmed local need is poor planning. It undermines the demographic vision of the estate, erodes buyer confidence and contradicts responsible needs-driven development.
Thanks, Alan. I might pull you up at that point, unless you just want to finish off that
I'll just get one more sentence, if that's okay.
last thread.
We urge the council to reject the proposal, or at the very least pause it until an independent needs assessment is completed and shared transparently with the community.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Councillors, any questions for Mr. McWay? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll invite Councillor Nichols back into the room, and while that's happening, we might get a mover out of public forum. Councillor Crisp.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, I move that the council moves out of public forum and onto the agenda, please. Thank you.
It's a motion seconded. Councillor Evans. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Welcome back, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, item 6, there are no outstanding matters from previous meetings. I will move to item 7, excuse me, and move my mayoral report. If I could have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Are there any questions? I'll just point out briefly some correspondence that we've received regarding our submission for funds to be reimbursed for the flood recovery efforts. And disappointingly, we've been granted approximately half of what we asked for. And the basis for refusing the other half is that they don't satisfy the criteria. However, I'm just mentioning this because I think in terms of our prudent financial management, we're actually as a council being penalised for a proactive approach. So we're going to write further to Helen Dalton MP, our local MP, to have another go at rectifying this. Essentially what the government's saying is in a future flood event, we should just, instead of removing community infrastructure like barbecues and other things, we should just let it get wrecked and then claim it back on insurance or government grants. We took a very proactive approach, and I commend our council team for doing that, because it's not only saved resources but also a lot of money, and I just think this approach is miserly, and that's why I bring it to your attention. Second piece of correspondence, we wrote to the Minister for Agriculture and the Minister for Western New South Wales in February, highlighting the significant dry conditions across most of the Shire in conjunction with the Mayor of Balranald. We've now received a response. There is no such thing as a drought declaration per se anymore. So in terms of assistance to landholders continuing to experience dry times that would have appreciated in other times support, for example, transport subsidies for either removing downsizing stock or for bringing in fodder or indeed water, given the prevalence of feral goats on a lot of the property. It's a disappointing response at this point from the government. Any further questions? Those in favour of accepting my report? Thank you, that's carried. Councillors, I'd like to introduce a mayoral minute on the basis that I was waiting for an outcome from the Mildura Rural City Council ITLAS document, which they passed at their last meeting, and I didn't have sufficient time to produce a notice of motion, so I'm doing it via the mechanism of a mayoral minute, which is, I move the following, that requests the General Manager or Delegate to prepare a report to be presented to the August meeting of Council, considering the following transport-related items so that Council can review, plan, prioritise and advocate effectively for necessary infrastructure. 1. Compile existing strategic transport documents. 2. Examine the Mildura Rural City Council integrated transport and land use strategy where it is relevant to the Wentworth Shire Council, namely the bypass and bridge crossing at Monac, and reference appropriate course of advocacy. 3. Examine the interaction between the council road network and state highways, particularly our residential growth areas, with the aim of identifying intersection and other upgrades that will effectively accommodate increased traffic flows into the future. 4. Identify key infrastructure priorities by short and long term. 5. Identify a potential location for overtaking lanes on the Sturt Highway and feed this into the Sturt Highway Task Force, of which our council is part of. 6. Consider strategic long-term access to appropriate water and gravel resources that can assist rural road maintenance outcomes, particularly during periods of prolonged dry. And finally, compile an action or reference table of requests made to Transport for New South Wales and the status of those responses. Councillors, I've put this request through because I would like us to have a easily accessible document that we can advocate on the run, if you like, on issues with regard to infrastructure. One of them's a key productivity piece, which is the bypass that's being discussed and the Monac Bridge. That would clearly fall into, I guess, the medium and longer term priorities. Council has much more short-term priorities, including work that's, most of what I mentioned here is being done. This is really just about getting it compiled into a report that's more user-friendly document for councillors. A key upgrade required at Golgol at the creek crossing is both road safety, transport efficiency, but also flood mitigation. So there's key work that's being done, and I'm happy to take any questions. If there are none, I move that the minute be accepted. Those in favour? Thank you, that is carried. Righto. Item 8, reports from committees. There are nil reports. Councillor Crisp.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move to items 9.12 to 9.20 on the agenda, and so that they can be dealt with immediately.
So motion seconded. Councillor Rodder. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, thank you, Councillor Nichols. Right, so we're going to move to item 9.12. Excuse me. Okay, item 12, permanent group home, 190 Hinton Avenue. Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to reject the recommendations and I will now proceed with comments.
I'll get a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Crisp.
The reason for this is to be consistent with our previous decisions, and the reason for the rejection is clause 62A, and I quote, must not refuse a group development unless an assessment of community needs has been done. Now, we've already approved 5 homes, which is 15 places. When a similar matter was before council previously, council undertook to commission a research on demand based on that research, councillors undertook their own research on demand, and on the basis of that research refused the application stats, but they instructed the general manager to commission an independent report on demand, and council awaits that report. I'm sure the general manager could report on that at some point if it was so desired, but it is being undertaken, but it is not yet before us for us to make a decision. And that's it's an important report to be done because the statistics are difficult. We find that there are various regions, various views, ways of interpreting the debate, interpreting the stats and debating those statistics. What we do need to do is we've found someone, I hope, who can make all of that clear, because it is, as we've heard, a controversial issue and a difficult issue, particularly over how the data is presented. So that instruction and also being consistent is the basis for this. However, there are other matters that are of concern in this debate. And one of those is the planning law versus social licence. As I said, when this matter was first before council, there is what the law tells us, and then there is what the community are telling us, and it's this forum has to manage that. Now, the law would normally take precedent in this, but we do have that section 62 that we are doing our job as councillors of getting the information we need to make a good decision. So the SEP allows this type of development, but like all things these days, a social licence is important, and some of the issues around gaining that social licence have been highlighted in the presentations earlier. And clustering is one such issue that is controversial. A credible local operator informs us that they only do one house in a court or residential street, and this decision came about from their experience of community reaction and a number of things that have been discussed here as well. Then we have some of these issues of inclusive versus non-inclusive, and what credible sources tell us is to be inclusive does not mean a concentration which risks institutional care by stealth. That's something that needs to be considered. So a lack of a social licence will then also bring on what I call community fatigue. Now, what I say about community fatigue is not a threat, it's from experience. I've been down this path in a previous life too many times, but it manifests itself when you don't have the community licence and community fatigue sets in, that every time an event occurs, then the local residents will get on the phone, and they'll call the police, they'll call council. Thanks to social media, they'll call the operator, the owners if they can identify them, the promoters, the media, the builder. They all know where they are, and we will go down a path which as council we've seen and experienced community fatigue. It just really wears everybody down, and things generally become really, really difficult. And for those reasons, credible local operators do not cluster houses together. And I think that could well be a byproduct of these actions is that we go down a path none of us want to go down. However, all we can do is work to section 62, and then see what the demand is and then proceed accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At risk of hogging all the microphone tonight, I will speak in support of Councillor Crisp's motion. And apologies for those who were here in February. I'm going to rehash lots of issues that I said then. This is a very hard issue for us as a council and us as a community. There is a moral argument for both sides, and I understand there is a legal argument for both sides as well. As Councillor Crisp has said, Mr. Mayor, with the concentration of NDIS SDA homes in one location, putting the burden of this, and I don't mean that in a negative way, I just mean that to use the word, on one part of our community, developers are really putting at risk their social license in how they operate, and putting at risk the goodwill of the community towards what are essential facilities, right? Wentworth Shire Council and we as councillors fully support our disability inclusion plan, and we would love to see NDIS housing across our shire where it is appropriate and where it fits in within the community. So we don't run into the risk that the NDIA identified in their own self-led review into the NDIS, right? But their review highlighted that the impact of placing lots of these facilities in close proximity, and we have 9 before us tonight. We've already approved 5. We have rejected others at previous meetings this year. So there is the desire for there to be a concentration. So the NDIA have identified that this risks institutionalisation of those in care, and that is not something we as a community want to see. We as a community want to see NDIS participants supported and cared for to the highest level of care available. When we talk to local reputable operators in this space who provide now SDA care in our communities, they are saying that the density that is proposed amongst all of the proposals we've seen this year is not of benefit to the community and is not in keeping with the intent of the Act behind the NDIS and the NDIA. Mr. Mayor, as I said, we want to see disability support across the Shire, but we want to see it in a way that meets community expectations and that care is spread across the Shire. As the Deputy Mayor, Mr. Councillor Crisp, said when we first addressed this issue back in February, when we look at all these applications in front of us, and as we have previously, right, it's hard for us to come at this with a community heart and not think the following, right? This is not fair, it's not right, but it's legal. And it doesn't pass the pub test, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Okay, is there anyone wish to speak against the motion? Any further speakers for the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? As a planning item, I advise that this vote will be considered a division and all votes for and against will be recorded. The motion is carried. We'll move to item 9.13. Permanent Group Home, 11 Wentworth. Councillor Crisp.
Mr. Mayor, I move to reject the recommendation.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded? Councillor Rodder. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? And this is also, as a planning matter, considered a division and all votes for and against will be recorded.
The reason.
Councillor Crisp, could you please clarify your
The
motion?
reason for refusal is clause 62A, that we must not refuse a group development unless an assessment of the community need has been done. That assessment is still pending presentation to council.
Thank you. I'll just run that that vote again now that that's been clarified. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Okay, item 9.14, permanent group home 8 Midway Drive. Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to reject the recommendation, and the reason for is under 62A that I have stated before, and the assessment is pending presentation to council.
Seconded Councillor Weeding. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against? I'll put the motion, and this is a planning matter, and this vote will be considered a division, and all votes for and against will be recorded. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.15, permanent group home 12 Wentworth Court. Councillor Crisp.
Mr. Mayor, I move to reject the recommendation, and the reason being clause 62A, and that assessment is pending presentation to council.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded? Councillor Evans. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? I'll put the motion. This is a planning matter, and it will be considered a division, and all votes for and against will be recorded. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.16, permanent group home 6 Broadstock Court. Is there a motion? Thank you, Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to reject the recommendation, the reason being clause 62, and the assessment is pending presentation to council.
Is the motion seconded? Councillor Rodder. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? I'll put the motion. This is a planning matter, and this vote will be considered a division. All votes for and against will be recorded. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.17, which is permanent group home 22 Midway Drive. Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move a motion to reject the recommendation, the reason being clause 62A. The assessment is pending presentation to council.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Armstrong. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? I'll put the motion. This is a planning matter, and all votes will be considered a division. All votes will be recorded for and against. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. We'll move to item 9.18, which is permanent group home 10 Broadstock Court. Do I have a motion? Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to reject the recommendation, the reason being clause 62A, and that the assessment is pending presentation to council.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Is the motion seconded? Councillor Rodder. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? I'll put the motion. This is a planning matter, and this vote will be considered a division. All votes for and against will be recorded. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.19, permanent group home 10 Midway Drive. Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move a motion to reject the recommendation, the reason clause 62A, and the assessment is pending presentation to council.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Is the motion seconded? Thank you, Councillor Starrick. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against? I'll put the motion. This is a planning matter and will be considered a division. All votes for and against will be recorded. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.20, permanent group home 32 Midway Drive. Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move a motion to reject the recommendation, The reason, clause 62, and the assessment is pending presentation to council.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Is the motion seconded? Councillor Armstrong. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? I'll put the motion. This is a planning matter and all votes will be considered a division and all votes for and against will be recorded. Those in favour? Thank you. The item is carried unanimously.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Crisp.
Mr Mayor, I move that we return to our agenda in reports and to 9.1, but also move that be a brief adjournment to allow the gallery who wish to leave in an orderly manner.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded? Thank you, Councillor Rodder. Those in favour? That is carried. Thank you.
could set up that further work.
Thank you, everybody. We'll now move to item 9.1, General Manager's Report. Do I have a mover, please? We're back in session, guys. Councillor Rodder, seconded by Councillor Crisp. Does anybody have any questions for the General Manager? Councillor Rodder.
I don't have any questions in regards to the General Manager's report, but I do have a comment in regards to the Wentworth Shire interagency group. Can you please record an apology to Borough? Gail, I'm a little bit busy with a field day, and which may have come in too late for the agenda, but we've got the MRCC WSC meeting in the events upcoming on Wednesday the 21st.
Sorry, you're pointing out that it's not in the table of meetings? Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
And perhaps
Councillor Crisp.
12th of June, the club grants General Manager. I'll be out of town that day, unfortunately, as acting mayor. So I'll talk to you out of sessions about how we might manage that.
I'll be here till the
About
24th.
to say,
Yeah.
don't jump in too early, Councillor.
Thank goodness for that.
Thank you.
It's one that we don't want to miss.
Correct. Yes. Thank you. Any further questions for the General Manager's report? Councillor Barrett.
Question, if I could be, please, on the circular. Point 2, the laws in place responsibility on property owners to take items such as bikes, trolleys, and I'm just clarifying the property owners being the owner of those items, not council. Thank you.
That's the example that's most common in relative to that is you go and do your shopping and your car's up the street and you just leave the trolley there, so it's up to the trolley owner to go and get it back. They're the ones that get fined for it being unattended.
Thank you. No further questions. I'll put the motion accepted. Thank you. That's carried. Item 9.2, lifting of alcohol free zone, Wentworth Rowing Club Lawns area. Councillor Nichols has moved, seconded by Councillor Evans. Anyone speak for the motion? Against? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Item 9.3, the monthly finance report for April 2025. Mover, Councillor Rodder, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Crisp. Does anyone have any questions? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Item 9.4, the monthly investment report for April 2025. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Crisp, seconded by Councillor Starrick. Does anybody have any questions?
Probably a comment more so.
Councillor Nichols.
Thank God we've got nothing in Macquarie.
Oh.
You do.
Yes. I looked today. Thank you.
With the motion, those in favour?
Sorry, Mr.
Oh, you have a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Rodder has a question.
So just in regards to the $4.2 million that's owed across various projects, are we hoping to have that funds in our ledger before the end of the financial year, or will that come across before the end of the calendar year?
More likely than not at the end of the calendar year. We'll get probably $3 million of it by the end of this financial year. The biggest driver of that amount is the $2.5 million we're owed for Arumpo Road, which that project is pretty much finished now. With the ceiling invoice rocked up last week, so yeah, we've started the process of doing all the final acquittals, and I imagine the government would like to see that money out of their out of Treasury before the end of the financial year. So yeah, we'll be getting the
There's quite a bit to carry in for council to be owed $4.2 billion.
Yeah. And as I mentioned on on Thursday when we chatted on Thursday, the Pooncarie Menindee Road project we actually were able to claim progressively as we on a monthly basis. So it just happened that this project was had different requirements around it, and unfortunately that does happen from time to time. But the rest of the other amounts that were owed, most of them are about $250,000 or $300,000, which is 20%, which is most grant projects have a 15-20% final acquittal payment. It's just that we've had so many grants that we've been working through over the last couple of years, and that we're getting to that point where we're finishing them up and getting ready to do the final acquittals.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing it.
So am I. As I said on Thursday, this is the first time in 16 years yes, that it's occurred. So
We'll get by.
yes, we will get by.
That's it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Any further questions? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Item 9.5, March Quarterly Budget Review. This is a report for noting. Do I have a mover? Councillor Crisp, and seconded by Councillor Deating.
I move for the question, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly.
On page 66, under consultancies pay, it's Public Works Advisory. Now, I presume this is our water and wastewater consultancy that's going through, and we've seen some benefit out of this, but not a great deal yet.
Yeah, they're also doing some subsidiary work on a number of individual projects that are spun out. Jeff could probably explain it a bit more as well.
Yeah, so the Public Works Advisory have been used on a number of other related projects for both project scoping in only one in recent times, project management, but also extensively on design consulting on a number of particular projects, not necessarily limited to water and sewage, but also into stormwater designs as well. So they're not that's all in addition to the integrated water cycle management plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Rodder.
So, just in regards to the consultancies, even though it's not directly related to the item, so we've had a consultant doing the Pink Lake surveying. Is there an update on where we're at with that project?
Not from my end. Is a project itself directly done? Not so much the land tenure, or
It is the land tenure to a certain degree. The design work is done. And I think there's negotiations around the footprint and the set level for the lake, associated work with regards to that, and I think there is also pending some information requirements or approvals for the easement and the outfit as well. Yeah. So, but the project, essentially, the design work for the project and the pipeline and everything is that work has been completed, and it just really relates to finalisation of those other components that I just mentioned.
Thank you, Director Gunn. Did you have a follow-up question, Councillor Rodder?
So that one's been on the agenda for quite a while, so I look forward to seeing that one come in as a project in the papers. Not a follow-up question, just a comment.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. Any further questions? I will put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Excuse me. Item 9.6, Quarterly Operational Plan Progress Report. Councillor Nichols has moved with a comment. I'll get a seconder and then we'll get the comment. Councillor Starrick has seconded. Councillor Nichols.
Just a little bit disappointed on 4.46. the deferred items because we have significant funding that we've been getting from the sewer and water. And they're things that I think that really need to know. They need to happen. It's just, so any idea can be deferred till next year possibly. So, yeah, is there anything else we can do to try and
Page number to assist.
page 35 and
119.
yeah, 119.
119, thanks.
.49, 3.4.10, and also going back to 3.4.6. It's not something we've known for quite a long time that they need work doing. With those posts.
Yep. So I'll refer that question to Director Gunn.
Yeah, I might take that one on notice, but I notice it refers to the Fotherby Park SPS 8, station 3.4.6. Yeah, so the with regards to the current works with the inspection. And the proposed relining works where that has been prioritised to the high risk areas in Wentworth. We have, as previously been reported over the last couple of months, we've had a number of other specific high risk maintenance related failures for pump replacements for both sewer and to water, and the priority has been to direct resources into those particular areas. But I'm sure this one hasn't been deleted off the list. It's probably
Been rebudgeted for next year.
Rebudgeted and reprioritised on the list of higher priority, for want of a better word, actions in the water and sewer area at the moment.
Director Gunn, just on that question, some of the other deferred, where it refers to integrated water cycle management plan, is that not in part because there's those safe and secure, there's other pieces of work that are being done?
There are a number, even as we have just discussed before, the lengthy nature or extended nature of the delivery of that plan is not hasn't been detrimental to us receiving external funds through the safe and secure water area, and as reported in the works report, there are a number of funded programs with regards to investigation and scoping that is currently underway for the identified projects, of which a number of them are included in this plan.
Yeah. Councillor Crisp.
At page 114, item 3.2.17, from the good folk of Dearton. Hurry up.
Is that a footpath related?
No, it's the demolition of the old toilet block.
Yeah, so just on an update on that, so so that work is due to commence this month in association with the demolition of the old tennis club. There was a slight delay with regards to some asbestos materials on the floor of the tennis club building, which needed a change in approach to removal and cost. So that's all been accounted for now. The contractor is in place, and he has identified this month to remove both of those buildings and reinstate the car park in the centre of town once the toilet blocks removed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Purchase orders have been raised as well.
Yep.
It's getting real. Councillor Weeding has a question.
Page 89, 1.22, about the Ruby, the Heritage Committee want to register it in State Heritage as an item. Has that been done before, Ken, or tried to be done, or?
Oh, it was contemplated back in 2014, Councillor Whiting. So yeah, we're basically trying to work through that process as we speak. I just need to follow up with where it's actually up to. I'm sorry, but yeah. Obviously, the mentality behind that is that it can seek some monetary benefits by being registered as a state heritage item.
Thank you. Councillor Crisp.
Item 3.3.5 on page 117, which is to do with the flood study. And can we have a progress report? I know it says it's underway, but there is a number of things that are important. Everything from insurances for our confusion over insurance about what is flood vulnerable and what isn't, and so on, through to our issues at the airport.
Not a level of detail that I can reflect on at the moment, Councillor Crisp. There was the Riverine Environment Flood Study, and now there's been the overland flow. So the consultants have been engaged in doing that. There's been recent communication between them and myself and Scott Barnes relative to data capture and collection. So not the level that you're asking for, but it's certainly progressing and moving forward.
Thank you. That's good. If I have one more, Mr.
Certainly. Go ahead.
Over the page on 118, 3.4.5, Simon, how are we doing with virtual energy networks?
Not a lot at the moment. There's been some internal discussions, and you and I have had discussions, Councillor Crisp, but yeah, it's
ongoing.
Not a lot's progressed in recent times.
That's the car EV charges?
No.
Using our excess solar generation rooftop to be applied to other council appliances.
Oh, sorry, I missed the...
Just as a general inquiry I made the other day, so we're running at about $1,000 a month for this building, which is better than what the old one was running at.
$1,000 a month surplus or cost?
Cost.
Yeah. For councillors, bring you up to speed a little, that there is something called virtual energy networks, and the example I'd use at the weekends when we've got surplus power on the top of this building being put into the grid, the rebate rates are dropping off rapidly, but there is what virtual networks allow you to do at a cost is to move your energy, say, to the pump station just down the road in Darling Street, our sewer pump, and offset its use when we have a surplus here. But it's easily said than done. It's not something that is widely used yet because there is resistance from various quarters about using it. But for council, rather than getting a few dollars for our surplus power out of ours, we could save more than that by offsetting it against some of our uses. So
for the newer councillors, some of our biggest users of electricity are our pump stations. Yep. And a lot of them are on a very small footprint, or they just themselves don't allow us to hook up. There's just not the room to hook up all the infrastructure to hook up solar panels to them. So and the discussions that Councillor Crisp and I have had in the past, if we're able to somehow offset some of the power usage there with some of the surplus on here, would be one way of us reducing some of our electricity costs on those facilities.
Until more recent times, it worked as cash. You turn your surplus into cash, and then you could then use that to offset a bill. That doesn't work anymore.
Cash is diminishing. Thank you. Councillor Nichols.
There are still some things that pay cash because I'm getting it. Do we have batteries?
No.
Batteries, this surplus can go into batteries and it's not necessary, so it might be worth council looking at batteries. They've dropped in price amazingly. So that might be another way we could look at it.
Thanks, Councillor Nichols.
Probably a good question on that for Simon to check is whether local government qualifies for the state and federal assistance or offset prices, offset of batteries. If we qualify, it might work, might be economic. If we don't, without those state and federal stuff,
The federal assistance was for households.
in my view.
Yeah. But do we know who won the election? Sorry. Any further questions for the works report, the progress report? Councillor Evans.
Just a quick one. I was a bit slow off the mark. Michael did ask a question. Councillor Weedy asked a question about the Ruby, and I just wanted to touch on that, whether there can be something more sturdy in our moving forward, that we make some decisions on what on earth we're going to do there. It's a constant. I work in that area, and I get the questions all the time, and I have a concern for the future of the boat. Every day that it sits there, and every year, every month, every week, it's deteriorating quickly, very quickly. And, unfortunately, I think we've missed the boat, and I pardon the pun, but the situation is pretty dire. And there's some interest, I know, out there in perhaps we don't want to lose our history and heritage, but also we do. I'd just like to see something move forward in a more sturdy fashion, that we can come up with some sort of solution. And it may not be a good one, or it may be a good one, I don't know. So let's make a decision somewhere along the line. Yes. It's a council asset.
Heritage may well make that decision for us.
If I may, just to further that, so an independent surveyor come up from South Australia, and he's looked over the boat. He'll come up with a report to give you that opportunity. I think it's going to come in threefold: the glitzy Rolls Royce or the parked up vessel. He'll give us an indication of how that may, and the financial implications of that. So can't remember his name, sorry, but yeah, he was here about 10 days ago and looked over the boat. He'll come forward with some of the.
Is his name Leo? No. Okay. Because he does surveying up here, but from South Australia. So
Would that be a similar style of report to what council received, the last council received, in terms of suitability or otherwise?
Yeah, so in the one you're referencing at the moment, I think there was a stability report. This gentleman is known for his survey work for vessels on the water and the work related to those. So I met with him on the boat, and we looked at, in general terms, the fabric, and then we looked at the boiler, and then he looked at other things. And I left him, and he went over it for about an hour, and he will come back to me with a report of pretty much in the language of more au fait with the vessel. Councillor Evans will understand it, that it'll be, here it is, bells and whistles, cost you X maybe. Relatively, this might look at opportunities for in the water, the gem like Swan Hill, the barge at Renmark, or whatever the case may be.
Restoration versus preservation.
Yeah.
We've had that.
Yeah, so it's. I appreciate the comments. It's that's been made, but we've taken that next step to engage with Tweet.
that's good information. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Looks like we've got a workshop coming up later in the year. Great. Sorry, Councillor Evans. All right. Are there any further questions relating to the works progress report? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move to item 9.7, endorsement of delivery program, operational plan, disability inclusion plan, and resource strategy for public exhibition. Moved by Councillor Armstrong.
As written.
As written, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Starrick. Are there any questions? Councillor Nichols.
Well, it's simple, really. Can Mr. Rule give a rough idea of what the increases to a general rate notice will be, with the increases of the 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, all the way through?
I haven't done that analysis yet, Councillor Nichols, and I'm happy to take it on notice. And I was having a conversation to the Mayor about it this afternoon. It's not an easy question because each rate's notice will be different depending on the value of their property and where that value sits in relation to the other properties within the.
I mean, if we just got some sort of idea, because I think a lot of people are going to struggle this year, and I noticed that we're 1.5% down on this time last year already with our rate payments, with an increase of, with the water.
Last year's was a bit skewed because we got those property sales come in last year, so they skewed some of the receipts that we had last year. But as a percentage, it's pretty much tracking where it should be tracking for this time of the year.
Because, I mean, it's not only the fact they're living in a house, their wastewater, their garbage, the whole lot. It's just a general. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crisp and then Councillor Armstrong.
Just councillors, having gone through the disability inclusion plan on page 283 are our statistics for the Shire, which makes some interesting maths. That if we've got a population of 7,688 as per elsewhere in the document, and 180 people on NDIS, that's 2.34% of our population are NDIS recipients in our Shire. Interesting figure. Not everybody with a disability is on the NDIS, clearly, but that's as by the figure in Australia below that. But that's, given the debate we've just had, that's an interesting figure. However, given that we've got a consultancy out there, those figures may need to be updated when that report comes to us.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important that we note that we are recommending the maximum 4.5% rate peg increase to our rates. I think that's important we do that, right? In the media this year, we've seen other councils within the state have to go and ask IPART for special rate increases of significant amounts. I think a 4.5% increase is a small amount that's sustainable and doesn't put us as a council in a long-term bad position. What I would say, though, there is a lot of sentiment out there within our Shire, specifically around water, filtered and raw. And we are increasing that at 4.5% as well, which is fair. But I think we as a council have to be aware of the negative sentiment towards that, and we have to quickly move towards presenting future solutions in this space to keep the community on board with that.
Thanks, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Rodder.
I would just like to encourage for all of the plans that are going on public display to be inspected by people from the community and ratepayers to have an understanding, excuse me, of what plans are in place for council going forward for the next period. I would particularly encourage people to look at the fees and charges and bring to the attention of council any concerns in that regard.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, just something I missed in the movie of the recommendation is that there's no time period listed in the recommendation for public exhibition. It just says endorses for public exhibition, so it's missed. 28 days. It's missed our standard 28 days. So no, it's not quite in keeping with meeting procedure, but I would like to insert that it goes for public exhibition for a period of 28 days, if the second is okay with that. Is it okay for it to include a 28-day time period?
I did double check that.
I couldn't see it in the recommendation.
I didn't put it in, but yeah, that's the minimum.
That's just, yeah.
And our next meeting date exceeds 28, for when we would consider this, exceeds 28 days. Are you happy?
Yes.
As written?
With the insertion of 28 days.
Okay. Is the seconder Councillor Starrick, are you happy to accept that change?
Yep.
On public exhibition for 28 days. Okay, thank you. Right, any further questions or debate? Councillor Crisp.
Some comments, and I think that the budget does fit the needs and expectations of our council region very well. We are required to ensure that there are sufficient resources available for our population and increasing growth, and the budget meets that requirement. And on other matters, these in uncertain times, I think it is quite prudent for us to have the budget that we have before us. And in a discussion a little earlier in the corporate services report, we do need to maintain a pretty good level of liquidity to meet those demands, because if we didn't have it, we'd have to borrow the money at ratepayers' expense to ensure that those projects do go ahead. So we've got to be prepared for that, and this budget takes that into account. So I think it's a budget I'm happy to commend to the community.
Thanks, Councillor Crisp. Councillor Starrick.
And just following up on the comment by Councillor Crisp with regard to having the cash on hand, calling out the fact that the plan includes no new borrowings, which is further supporting what Councillor Crisp has said about that ongoing sustainability and raising our own funds to support the infrastructure and the development and the planning that we're planning to do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Look, I won't contribute to the debate other than to make a comment that at many forums that we attend, there is often a discussion about special rate variations that other councils have had to lean on for financial sustainability, and I think it's an area that we can be thankful that our executive team over subsequent years have managed to avoid with prudent financial management, and that's something we want to continue, and we don't want to go down the path of needing to request that. So I think responsible and sustainable growth in our own source revenue is very important and quite well managed. Is there any further?
The only comment, Mr. Mayor, is it's probably time that emergency services were taken up by the state and federal governments rather than still being part of the local government. Curriculum is only 0.9%, but that's a percent that we could be spending somewhere else.
No, that is an advocacy push being pursued. Councillor Starrick, did you have a further question?
I just wanted to acknowledge the work that's gone into all of these plans to update them and renew them, particularly given this is the year following the general election. There's a lot more work that the staff have to do with these plans than what they normally do annually. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, thank you, and I think we all support that comment. Director Rule.
Yeah.
Councillor Evans.
The community, I think, is probably appreciates the sentiment we see in our finances that we have achieved, and this council has achieved some amazing end products and projects. But I think in seeing that there is some restraint now ahead, that we keep things reasonably well under control, and I think the community will appreciate that sentiment through our discussions. We're not out there to build pyramids. We're out there, I think now we can focus on those things that we're talking about here, and we've discussed providing important things for our community, and that is water supply. And as the development in the area goes ahead, we get down to those things that really are important to the community, and I think they'll see that we're prudent and we're making sure we're sustainable. So
thanks, Councillor Evans. Yeah, well said. Anything further? Councillor William.
Just like to make a comment that once you get into a hole, if you don't put the rates up this year, you get yourself into a hole. You've got to dig yourself out of that hole later on. So I think it's better we stick with the 4.5% increase.
You make the point well, and it may just be worth the context pointing out that in the recent years we've had the cap as low as 0.7% in 22-23. So, you know, if you had to, if you're under pressure, that could actually put you in a hole.
Inflation was 6% that year.
That's right, yeah. So, you know, 2.6, 2.7, 3.7, very modest increases when we know our expenses far exceeded. All right, if there's nothing further, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Now we'll move to item 9.8, request for financial assistance. That's on page 420. Would you like to move a motion, Councillor Rodder?
I would. So I would like to move a motion that we open a discussion on the options that are available in the recommendation.
Perhaps if you nominate, craft your motion
Right.
to what you're proposing.
My motion is that we consider partial funding the applications.
And which applications?
So there's two applications that are currently before council, both for $5,000 each. So to approve both of those would leave us with a budget deficit of $1,338.96. So there's a recommendation there for a budget variation of $10,000 to provide sufficient funds till the end of the financial year.
Yep.
I would like to raise a couple of concerns in regards to the financial assistance program. So we're in this financial year in that 200,000.
We might just, if we can get to the motion and second it, and then we can go into the discussion. So, are your motion is that we consider partially funding the applications?
Yes.
Is that motion seconded? Councillor Starrick? Okay. Councillor Rock.
So within that $200,000 budget, which was originally allocated for the 2024-25, so we've got a number of events which have been funded under delegated authority, which are actually being held outside of that financial year. So there's been previous discussion around the financial assistance program and the delegated authority, and providing a greater level of detail to council in regards to what's approved and what's left in the budget. It makes it difficult when you're considering an item individually without an overview of the whole situation. Can I ask that that in future the financial assistance program be presented in such a way in a financial report which details what normally comes out of that $200,000 budget, if that's in fact what we've agreed to allocate in the next financial year's budget, and to provide greater level of detail. We've got an event funding strategy which has been approved by council. We don't seem to, I'd like to review the financial assistance criteria. We've got a grant application here for $5,000 for an event that has no planning information and no budgetary information. So it's difficult to make a decision on whether that event should be fully funded, and I would suggest that we shouldn't fund it without further information.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is, so we can't prosecute re-examining the criteria within this motion, but what you can do is you can nominate what you think as part of your motion, nominate what you think should be spent, and then we can debate that. So if we perhaps go back to the motion of partially funding the applications, do you want to apply figures to that, and then we can?
So I propose that the application to cover the rental of the George Gordon and McLeod's Ovals and purchase a cricket netting be funded, and that the talent quest not be funded pending further information in regards to a budget and planning information on that event.
Okay, so your motion is to consider approving $5,000. Is that is the seconder happy with that outcome?
Yes. Yes.
Can you just read the motion?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll just clarify the motion, Councillor Rodder.
Yes, it is a little bit complicated. That the recommendation is for council to consider a budget variation of $10,000. Should the motion be successful, then that would not be necessary because we wouldn't need that additional funding to cover the shortfall. That fund the rental assistance for George Gordon Oval and not fund the applications. No, that's
The application for.
So the Cumio, so you want to support the Cumio Wentworth Cricket Club's application?
Yep.
And reject the RSL one?
Yes, on the grounds that there's no budgetary or planning information provided with that request.
All right, and I think that we can just leave out the bit about the budget variation because if it's not required, it's not required.
There will still be a budget
Yeah, we'll only check 5,000 instead.
instead of 10.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Right, so have we got the wording? So what we just have to clarify is whether you want the budget variation to be consistent with what you're wanting to approve, which would be 5,000 instead of 10,000. Is that what you wish?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd like a greater level of detail going forward, please.
Rightio. So we have a motion that council fund one and not the other, and that it considers a budget variation of $5,000. Okay, is the seconder happy with that motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor
Can I
Starrick.
ask a question about something else that's in there?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll just. Yep, Councillor Nichols.
Right, also, just the questions on the Pencaria Field Day group. I have no problem with Field Day. 4-day hire for the Pencaria ball for local ball. What sort of ball are they having? It'll take 4 days to have a ball.
Yes, it does if it's a PNS.
I mean, you usually turn up at night time.
They fired either side of it to set up and then clean up and all that type of stuff as well. So, yeah.
Very well attended.
I want to go. There must be an invitation if it's 4 days.
So, to the motion in front of us, would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Rodder, or anybody else?
I think I've probably already spoken enough.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried. Thanks. So we will move to item 9.9, the Bronca Golgol Sporting Master Plan. Does anyone wish to move the motion? Councillor Armstrong.
2 seconds just to pull it up in my thing here. Mr. Mayor, I would move the Council endorses the draft Baronga Golgol Sporting Master Plan as a guiding document for future sporting infrastructure and commits to phased funding and implementation to achieve outlined objectives, and will work to identify a suitable parcel of land that can satisfy the intent and spirit of the master plan.
Can you just go on this?
Sorry, I'll bring it over, Gal, so you can copy.
So we'll just give a couple of moments. That motion has been seconded by Councillor Crisp, and in a moment I'll invite the mover to speak. Just while we're waiting, I'll just make the comment. I think we all understand this is a forward-looking and strategic document. This is not suggesting that council is going to go and borrow tens of millions of dollars and implement this master plan overnight. So this is really about identifying the future growth and the aspirations of the Shire, and then matching funding as we can and as it becomes available.
And there may be various blocks of land out there available for us to look at and purchase too.
There may well be. But yes, I won't kick off the debate until the mover has had a chance.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you foreshadowed in your comments just then, the Baronga Golgol Sporting Master Plan is an aspirational document. It's a great visionary document for our Shire as we look at the growth and the future of our Shire, not just our Shire, but the region. Being able to supply and provide facilities that will be great facilities for those who live and reside in our Shire, but those who are in the greater region as well. We know sporting participation is very important for community cohesion and for health of the general people. I think so. My recommendation has used those words from the conclusion in the report. And while the report that we're endorsing, the plan, has, in a sense, identified a potential parcel of land for this development, I don't think we as a council should be held to it being on that specific parcel of land. I think that council will identify the best parcel of land that is suitable and that fits within the spirit, right? The end plan that we get may not look exactly like the plan that we have before us today, but I think it's important that we take the spirit of that plan and take the intent to provide these facilities for the future, and we run with it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Very good comments. Would someone else like to speak for or against the motion? Any speakers against? Further speakers for? I'll put the motion.
Can I just ask a question? What time frame are we looking at for this sporting plan, roughly?
100 years.
Well, there are aspects of the plan that are very near term, and there are those that would be subject to funding. So a second oval is something that's very necessary, and so procuring suitable land, step one, successfully negotiate purchase of space. Second oval, critical. Everything else, as funding can become available. But the importance of having a key advocacy document is you can go and talk to ministers when grant opportunities do arise. You've got something in the top drawer ready to go and attract the funds. And that was really the purpose of the exercise. And understand what the community desire is, and match up a plan to that. So, personally, I don't think we can apply a specific time frame to it, but it'll be something that progresses. Would you like to add anything to that, General Manager?
No, good summary. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. We'll move to item 9.10, which is the Council Policies Code of Meeting Practice and Code of Conduct. And we have a recommendation for endorsement. Councillor Armstrong has moved.
I move the recommendation as written, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Weeding. And would anyone like to speak to the motion? Would anyone like to speak against? Any questions? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. We'll move to item 9.11, which is land acquisition at George Gordon Oval, the best facility in the Sunraysia district.
Second.
Is there a mover?
That's it.
Councillor Crisp, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Weeding, thank you. Any questions? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Okay. Jog along to our favourite page 1071, the project and works report. And can I just say, Director Gunn, cat's out of the bag. The second stage of the pump track is up and running, and what a fantastic project. Thank you to your team, and I'll seek a mover for this report. Councillor Crisp, and seconded by Councillor Rodder. Any questions for Director? Councillor Starrick.
The Elcheringa Drive, Kerry Road and Silver Road stabilisation works. What works are classified as stabilisation? What does that cover?
So that's road rehabilitation. So essentially what we're doing there is adding road-based material to the existing, and we're stabilising it with slag lime. So we're chemically, or we're altering the nature and improving the strength of the pavement by stabilising it. In this area, generally up this way, we use slag lime. Further you go east, they use cement. So it's essentially introducing that mix into the pavement. So it's a good cost-effective way to improve strength in the road pavement rather than just adding more and more layers of material. So they're the so there's about 2 kilometres, I think, that are currently they're 2/3 of the way through, stabilising on altering the road. All the materials have already been put on about easily 3 kilometres on River Road. So and then I think there's about 1.5 or so k's to on Kerry Road where the cut-throughs were from the floods. So they will just bunny hop from one to another, and then they will get bitumen sealed straight away, and reline marked, and the other associated signs and road furniture will go straight in.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Certainly, Councillor Starrick with
So
a follow-up.
the fact that a lot of the soil around here is quite sandy, does that play a factor in the roads themselves and how we approach, how we lay the roads and how we maintain the roads? Does it make a difference, or is it?
Potentially, depending on, that's all a case-by-case basis, but essentially what we're dealing with here at the moment is there a layer of road-based material of, in some cases, questionable quality, and it might be over clay base, might be over a sandy base, and essentially what we use is, when we're going in to reconstruct those roads at the moment, we will condition that existing older material there to get a decent, what we call sub-base, and then we add material there to come back up. And in doing all this, we're improving the geometry of the road as well. So that's vertical alignment, horizontal alignment, and width and sight distance and everything as well.
Thank you. Anyone? Councillor Water.
Thank you, Director Gunn, for the report. I've just got a query in regards to, we did some upgrading to the Wentworth mooring. There evidently is an issue with the large paddle steamer from Mildura, when it's at Wentworth, actually has to be at the mooring rather than at the wharf because there's issues there in regards to damage to the boat. Is there a possibility to put some kind of mitigation at the wharf to stop that damage to the paddle boat, and then need to be at the mooring site where the houseboats are rather than at the wharf?
I have to take that on notice. Yes, but I'm happy to follow up. I'm a little bit unsure about the nature of the request there, but yes, I haven't been made aware of it.
Yeah, that was just something information that I became
probably
aware
clarify the fact that it's not relative to this houseboat mooring. It's relative to the adjacent mooring next to the wharf. Yeah. And the structure of the wharf is higher than required for that boat. Causes some problem, but I'm just pointing out that the houseboat moorings are further down, and there is the plastic section between the wharf and the boat ramp where they actually use the tie up, and that is actually a houseboat mooring area. So that's just clarifying that, yeah.
So it would be advantageous to mitigate the need to use that area rather than use the walk instead of that area. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
Thank you. Any further questions? Put the motion. Those in favour of accepting the report? Thank you. That is carried. Righto. There are no notices of motions or questions with notice. So
They're only insignificant matters today.
oh, sorry, they're not notified, and we'll have we'll have to deal with that separately, Councillor Nichols. Yeah, as in there's no agendaed notices of motion or questions with notice. So we'll move on to confidential business, please. If someone wishes to, Councillor Crisp, ever ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council adjourns into closed session. The recording of the meeting be suspended and members of the press and public be excluded from the closed session, and that access to the correspondence and reports related to these items be considered during the course of the closed section be withheld unless declassified by a separate motion.
So the motion seconded. Councillor Rodder. Those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. And we are now in And could I? Thank you. Yes. Yep. No. All good. Thank you, councillors. We're back in ordinary session, and I'd invite the General Manager to report on the outcomes from closed council business.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In item 12, closed council business this evening, council deliberated over two items, 12.1 being an NDIS Commission and NDIS Quality and Safeguard Commission. It was resolved that council writes to the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission, which regulates NDIS service providers, and NDIS Commission, which provides information to, amongst other things, government services, asking for comments / verification of the issues raised in material attached to this motion, being a letter around demand and data for SDA group housing. In relation to a second item of business this evening, in relation to a water account reduction request on property 599/1, it was resolved that council authorised a waiver of $3,831.60 being the initial water tariff for the subject property. And that concluded tonight's closed business.
Thank you very much, General Manager. And that concludes this evening's meeting. Our next council meeting is the 25th of June, and I thank councillors, all staff and the gallery for their attendance this evening. And could I wish our erstwhile assistant a very well-deserved and enjoyable week.